Hey, welcome to the iSpooge Daily channel. This is an experimental alt-personal brand. So the format's always changing, and I'm always trying to get a little bit better. So today's topic is energy hygiene for homeless people. And I know I don't always cover all the material in the description box, or even write a description box. But if there's ever a loose end that I leave open, feel free to drop a comment and I should be able to address it within a video or two. Still, this is a habit that I never quite seem to form. And I just don't have a stable situation. So not trying to make excuses, but that's sort of the spirit of the talk that we're going to do today. So I did put together my thoughts that I've been thinking about since the last stream on the topic. So I'm just going to walk through it, and I'm going to try to stick to 20 minutes. I know it can be just ridiculous to do an hour, especially when it's just like anecdotal and talking about other sources and things like that. So I know you guys' time is valuable. So as I burn through like 2 minutes talking about the meta of the stream, right? Other creators can have a video done in that time. So it's a lot more work than it looks like. And I'm not like sitting here trying to be a YouTuber, but I just need to be a YouTuber because I don't have anybody else to talk to. Oh my gosh, right? And so pretty much everything that we deal with as homeless people, and I know I'm in a house and I don't look like a homeless person, and here I go apologizing and explaining, which are things you shouldn't do, right? I've talked in a lot of streams, and again, like if you want a list of references, I can drop them in a comment. Even having opening comments is something new due to this whole energy hygiene thing, and it's not something that it's pervasive in my life, but also when you're raised with narcissistic abuse, and like I mentioned a couple times, there's been 4 or 5 narcissists in my life who have sort of dominated it. And that's not to say that I'm weak or anything like that. It's just when you're raised by them, you're groomed into it, right? So boundaries are a new thing, and when you don't have boundaries, a lot of times you can sail through if you're with good, healthy people. I've been with a lot of good, healthy people in my life, and you can sail through without boundaries, and they don't necessarily have all the boundaries either, but it's okay because nobody is being a predator to the other people, right? But once you get around someone who's a predator, they're not going to be in your face torturing you, right? They've got to seduce you into it and corner you into it slowly. It's methodical, so many videos on narcissistic abuse, and if you know, you know, and if you don't, there are other, probably better people to explain it than me. But if you know, then you'll know what I'm talking about. So basically, pretty much everything we deal with is low vibration, and in some sense, you attract what you are. And so if you're living on the street, if you're not able to shower very much, if you're I have it a really easy time on the street. I think my vibration was higher on the street than it is staying with my relative on average. Of course, it can always change over time, right? And there are things you can do, tighten your boundaries, for example, living on the street during pandemic, there was literally a year that I went without a shower because like I didn't have an ID. The DMV was like really messed up with appointment only sort of thing. And then I was working a lot, and I had to like catch up with bills with the money that I was working to get, because still at that time I had never really like gotten too behind on my bills. And it's like now it's like easy to go like 3 months, that really nothing's going to happen before 3 months if you're behind on bills, which that is just like, this is death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like, it's like I've always been someone who's like paid my bills the day that they come. So to like turn into a person who knows how long I can wait to pay a bill, that's like just like 5 or 10% of my mental energy during certain situations, like just becoming insecure about money. Think about the whole Maslow's hierarchy: biological needs, safety needs. Like having money is almost like having air, so it's like in your safety needs. And you need it for water, food, etc., etc. So like from like 2008 to 2016 or something, I was like, just like a professional doing well. I was able to like have whatever time I needed, whatever routine I wanted, etc., etc. So without knowing what like energy hygiene is or boundaries are, I didn't really have to set them, because I had like leverage in my career. I had money to, do things that just felt good, right? So I kind of like followed how I felt in a lot of ways and figured out what, good energy is, attracted to a lot of, high vibration situations. I got pretty high up. So once you don't have the money and the leverage, you're sort of like left with whatever you have around. And your vibration starts lowering, you start matching to lower energy situations, and then you start getting like more predatory people who like beat you down lower and lower and lower. So I've got a couple graphics that I have seen, many versions of. So here there's like your hertz, your vibrations per second. So like people intuitively know like higher vibes is like more enlightened, further sight, more peace, etc., etc. And like lower vibes is like, feeling angry, insecure. There's the whole thing of like love and fear. So love is up here at 500, fear is down here at 100. Grief, apathy, and then shame is like the lowest vibration, and shame is what narcissists operate out of. So 20 hertz versus like, I literally, like, there's not supposed to be too many people up in like the 4, 5, 600, and I did have unhealed wounds, but if they were scabs, they were like scabs I could deal with. I didn't have to worry too much about it. So, even though in retrospect I really think I spent a lot of my life in like joy and peace, like serenity, like I never had like enemies. I still don't even say that I have enemies. I'll say that I'm people's enemy, but it's just because like they need to heal and whatnot. But then your situation starts lowering, things like not paying bills, living on the street. Like I don't think ever on the street my vibration was down in like pride, anger. So there's excuse me, craving and desire, but like I was always working, and I grew up in a pretty minimal situation. On a lot of my older streams I was starting to talk about enslavement, because it's like I could see the pressure of the world, and I could see the mindset of a lot of the people around me. So it's like there's like, you know, so like there's the saying that like happiness is a choice, right? So it's like if I'm just going along with the program, I'm getting worse and worse. But it's like I could separate myself and see that I should be getting worse and worse. Like my material situation is extremely rough, but like I actually don't feel too bad. Like I'm like I was grateful. Like I'm usually not going without food, except like a couple times it got very extreme. And so I had like a lot of choice still, like choice and luck until I didn't. And then when you don't, so once it was like deep into pandemic and I'm like really without choice, I'm really getting into like this enslavement. And like this is where I was doing a lot of like the Free Britney, examining like biblical slavery. I did a lot of those videos on Twitch and I still have the recordings. They're not on YouTube. And I was definitely being probably too edgy for YouTube. So those are the kinds of things where like if you got on my Patreon and I had a bunch of members, I'm not ashamed of them. Like I totally stand behind everything that I've said and did on video. It's just like, not for YouTube in a sense. Like, but, it's like the whole comedy thing and the whole like Soto Zen practice from like 2008 till, I don't really Soto Zen practice anymore. I'm just like present a lot of the time now. It's like a different like Zen in the art of archery kind of thing. But like I'm able to really like separate myself mentally from the situation. And also like growing up with narcissistic abuse, you kind of like have, and I didn't think my parents were abusive. I never described them that way. Like I always tried to have a close relationship with my parents and thought they were weird. But anyway, it's sort of like you check out, you can live in your own world. Like the teachers in school would say that I daydream and all this and that. Pardon like all the tangents again. Like if I'm going too far off the rails, like just like having some snippets of notes to talk from are like way more prep than I usually do. So, it's like I'm like a good observer. Like when I started college, the natural choice would be computer science because I was a programmer, but I went for journalism. And I did switch to computer science eventually for, practical reasons, but just like journalistically, open source, like, I'm definitely like an observer and like to share what I observe, and the whole like, I'm not my body, I have a body thing. It's like, it's pretty intuitive, right? So yeah, it's like, you get to the idea of like economic enslavement more than physical, and you start like really seeing the situation that you should be feeling. And so many people succumb to it, like, because, they put you in fear. Like the TV programs you for fear, it programs you for desire, it programs you for apathy, just like overwhelms you with depressing stuff to think like, oh, who even cares? Like nihilism, guilt, a big generational pattern that people have is guilt. And like, it's, of course I hit these things from time to time, but like on average, I'm in my power more than in my force most of the time. But like, sometimes you just gotta like buckle down and force your way out of a situation, and that sucks. And once I'm referring to like getting a job or whatever, you clock in, clock out, And, maybe you're a vegan and you have to work at a coffee shop. Like, you might have like a hard limit for not working with meat, but you might say like, okay, there's an opportunity here and I have to work with packaged dairy products. Like, can I live with myself for doing that or not? It's like, that's like forcing yourself through a situation in a way. Right? Like, be practical. Oh no, just, if you have money, you don't have to make that kind of compromise. If you've got like a year of runway, you don't have to make that kind of compromise. But if there's like a job on your lap, like, you might be able to say like a hard no for meat, but like dairy, it's a lot harder to make a hard no for dairy. Like, at least for me personally, like, I worked as a shopper for a while and I had to go to the meat department and make an order for meat and handle the meat and put it into a leak-proof bag for packaging. Like, I can live with that personally. So, there's no shame in that, I guess I would say. Or maybe there is shame in it, but it's just like I see it as reasonable, and reason is in power. So, oh, well, don't you know that like people reason their way out of, into going along with the Holocaust and, like being members of the military during the Holocaust? Like, yo, I know. And like, that's the thing, like, it's, man, it's just so, like, you just have to forgive in some sense. Like, is forgiveness one of these? Probably not. Yeah, acceptance. So yeah, it's like people, like human beings have programming, and like the higher vibration you are, the less you're going to go along with the programming. And, like the people who went along with the programming, it's like, I guess there's like ignorance, and like the lower vibration they are when they're making these choices, like the more you have to forgive them. So I know I'm getting like pretty far from homelessness, but now think about somebody like eating food out of the garbage can, right? Like, what do you think their emotion is? Like, probably craving. I think that's a typo. Desire. Like scorn, like they swallow their pride to eat out of the garbage. They probably don't feel guilt or shame. Now, like, if someone's like newly homeless and they are given some leftover, like a takeaway box, and they throw it in the garbage, like, maybe they haven't been homeless long enough to do that. Like, personally, I would just, like, I'm just like, man, I would just, you don't want to throw it in the garbage, but like, you still don't want to eat off of somebody else's plate. Like in some cultures like Pakistan, so in the description I linked to a video from the Universe Guru that is her like basically like protecting your energy sort of thing. I don't have the title of it straight in front of me, but like, so this is where I want to get with energy hygiene. How are we doing on time? Did the stream end? Ooh, we're already at 20 minutes. Good Lord. Sorry, guys. So, there was so much I was going to talk about. So, we do the best we can. People don't need to ask questions if they sense that we have bad vibes. we can only do our best to keep our vibes high, and we match, so we match with the life we want, right? So, like the dairy example, does that lower someone's vibes? The eating off of someone else's plate, does that lower someone's vibes? Like, maybe to a degree, right? So, yeah, I definitely had a lot of thoughts on this one. So basically, I recommend the video down below because she gives you some specific techniques about how you can sort of tune out the bad energy that you're around. Like, you sort of like visualize. I don't want to give away her whole video, but there's techniques that she gives, like you can visualize, and you can sort of like close off your energy centers, and like specifically like eating off of someone's plate. Like, there's a little part about eating with people, like foreign masculine energy. Like, you don't know what the energy is that the people whose plate you're eating off of has. Like, to touch things is one thing, to take it into your body is a whole other thing, right? So, I wanted to get into where two or more are gathered, the sort of like group manifestation, the like heart resonance, when you really don't have a lot of opportunity, when you're isolated and living in the sewer or on a desert island, like there's no one else around. There might only be a little sunlight coming through a hole in the manhole cover that's like too heavy to lift. And then you're covered in poop when you go out. So like everyone's going to be like, oh, you're covered in poop, I just stay away from me. And you can't convince them through logic to not stay away from you, right? So then there's like, I just wanted to get into like sleep deprivation, poverty, the mental aspect, different vibes of different places, like, cafe, library, work center around other people who are low or high vibe, food service job around people who are low or high vibe. If you live in a car parked on the street or driving down the highway, an apartment, a hacker space, even rooms in a house like a kitchen, a basement, a bedroom, a garage have different energy. What town you're in, what city you're in, if there's nature around. Like, these things are like death by 1,000 paper cutting your vibes down. And then every situation that you're in from there attracts matching vibrations. And so you want to keep your mindset like in your power as much as possible, so that you're at least attracting somewhat powerful situations so that you can then, lift your vibe up more and more and more. Like, more and more things become in your control, right? A lot of like getting into a situation that you have to force, it's like things are like more and more is out of your control. So like the best you can really do is like accept, be neutral, trust that, at the end of the day, things are going to work out. Things are satisfactory, your life view. So that this one is like a little different. It has a 3-bander. So survival paradigm, reason and integrity, and spiritual paradigm. So like I very seldom drop like into survival, but like when I do, I notice that, I attract situations that should be, like I attract it so my vibe is there, but I still know how to keep my mindset about me. So like I'm sort of like untouchable in a way, like, and the situations that I do attract have to do with not really like childhood wounds, but like just childhood never learns. Like, I might not have even like fallen down and gotten a bruise or a scab that would then be picked off, but maybe it's like a slow boil through life that like eventually led to the situation of being homeless and all this and that. And it's like, it wasn't like substance abuse, it wasn't like, you know, there are just so many people who become homeless and you never know. And I just like decided to talk about it. But like tons of homeless people look just like me, right? So, you know, more about like, doesn't matter how I got it. Since coming here, you know, staying with my relatives who, you know, it's like I really see what low vibration people are like for the first time in my life, because I just don't have that choice to leave, you know. So anyway, I'm way over 20 minutes, so drop a comment if there's anything you want clarified or for me to expand upon in a future stream, and I'll try to keep them about 20 minutes. I'll try to do it consistently at least a few times a week. Like, the big reason to do this is because like I literally don't have much opportunity to talk to anybody or get anything off my chest. And I don't have any feedback mechanism, so I can like write a bunch of notes and blah, blah, blah. But I don't have like feedback. And for a long time, comments were off, chat was off, etc. Because it's just, I wasn't like, you know, I was just closed off. Like, and that's a natural reaction to being in such a low vibe situation. It's like just coming to the trust and the faith that nothing low, even though it can come at me, can ultimately hurt me in the long term. It's just, you know, it's all a process, right? So yeah, I'm not like sitting here saying I'm like universe guru up in enlightenment or whatever. But I mean, I'd say I'm like, oh, that's just your pride. You're actually down in fourth. Like, who knows where I am? But on average, I think I'm usually in my power. And, you know, that's what you want to do, is just kind of work up to being in your power as much as you can. Get as many little things within your control as you can. And, you know, use YouTube University. Find, you know, there's all kinds of people who talk about the stuff that the person in the video that I linked to talks about. So, you know, definitely, and you know, just one last thought is like force being masculine, power being feminine. That doesn't necessarily mean man or woman. Like, ideally, people have the ability to be as powerful and as forceful as needed. You know, man or woman. You know, it may be like the case that when people are in survival, you need a man who can force through it and a woman who can power through it, and they come together and balance each other out. But like, the more balanced the two people individually are, even the more balanced the union of them is. So, you know, you want to be in your power as much as possible, because we are spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So we need the force side of it, but what, you know, everything manifests in spirit before the physical, right? So you want to internally at least be within your power, even though, you know, you might be cleaning a construction site, or, you know, just do, like, in a sense, the more mindless labor is, the better. Like if you're literally just like moving crates around, organizing shelves, like you can be so brainless. Meanwhile, that gives your mind and spirit time to meditate on your way out. So yeah, definitely hitting the 30-minute mark. So thanks for joining and being here, and looking forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye.